Chapter 91: The Life of Wang Qinian. Wang Qinian looked at the burrito stall in front of him, sniffing the spicy and tangy flavor. His nose turned sour and nearly cried out. The recent period of his life is very difficult, being removed from the institution, more than just losing his salary as well as pension as a simple thing. More critical is that no matter which ministry of government office, once they see the record of his file that he had served in the supervisory yuan, they will politely ask him to leave. And like the general stores, they would even not invite himself, and he himself would not use an abacus. He would only use a torture device, not to mention that he would not do business, he would only investigate the case. When I first entered the supervisory yuan, I was so proud of myself. I was able to detect and solve the case, and the officials who committed the crime were not allowed to honestly reveal their guilt. And who would have thought that there would be such a day as a dog with no family? Now the age is also old, there are wives and children at home to support, alas. He was a bit disoriented to leave, touching the waist of a few pieces of broken silver. He thought to himself, who was offended, even fell into this field. The palace was furious, so it began to track down, and the supervisory yuan also began to assist. Originally, this matter has little to do with him, but no one would have thought that by visiting the streets. The Ministry of Internal Affairs even found out that the teenager before entering the Temple of Qing first came to the supervisory yuan. This matter can be a big deal. Lord Qin is not in Kyoto. The supervisory yuan is like a child without a father. The supervisory yuan's senior officials think, in case the palace thinks that the teenager has something to do with the institution, this is a big deal. The senior officials of the supervisory yuan thought, in case the palace thinks that the teenager has something to do with the hospital, how can this be said clearly? At the end of the investigation, Wang Qinian was found out. Because that teenager entered the supervisory yuan, there were many officials of the supervisory yuan who proved that the teenager pulled Wang Qinian and said a lot of words. Wang Qinian was bewildered to accept the investigation and told all the conversations he had with the teenager. That is, he hid the fact about the other party being a student of Lord Fei. The Ministry of Internal Affairs did not find out any other problems with Wang Qinian, so they had to let it go, but they still found a reason to kick him out of the supervisory yuan, which was considered to be a scapegoat. Wang Qinian was kicked out in such a pitiful manner, but he still did not tell the identity of the teenager, because he was vaguely aware of the fact that this matter is not as simple as it seems. The teenager may be inexperienced, and casually divulge his own identity, but he could not do so. Losing his job is scary, but offending Fei is even more scary, which all the officials of the supervisory yuan are very clear about. Something that all the officials of the supervisory court knew very well. When Elder Fei returns, I'll go and sue. Wang Qinian cried out, his head resting breathlessly in the middle of his towering shoulders as he walked off into the distance. Brother Wang. An official from one place flashed out from the street corner with a smile on his face, stopping his way. Wang Qinian fixed his eyes and recognized that the other party was Mu Tai from one of the departments. He heard that he was currently working in the investigation team of the assassination incident in Yolan Street. And he usually did not say a few words. How come he was free to come to find himself at this moment? He bowed with suspicion. Mr. Mu, what can I do for you? Mu Tai piled up an almost fawning smile on his face and said softly, Congratulations, congratulations, Brother Wang. He originally thought that he would be able to climb the high branch of Fan Xian, but he didn't realize that he would be doing it for someone else. But seeing as Mr. Fan had given this matter to himself to liaise with, there was always the possibility of getting closer in the future. Originally, he was a mute person who was devoted to his official duties, but as he grew older, he couldn't help but plan for his own future. As soon as he saw Fan Xian's waist plate, and then linked it to the words he had accidentally seen when he was handling a certain case, he had already recognized that Fan Xian was an extremely thick thigh, and that's why Wang Qinian, who was probably a close friend of Fan Xian's son, would be so deferential. It was only that Mu Tai had always been mute, and when he first did this today, the fawning smile on his face appeared a bit stiff and not natural enough. Wang Qinian's heart trembled as he looked at the stiff smile on the other's face, thinking could it be that he was going to be silenced? Wang Qinian, who had not yet recovered from the aftermath, sat in a secluded room and looked at the beautiful male opposite him. Even if he turned the other party into ashes, he would definitely recognize him, because the other party was the teenager who caused him to be kicked out of the supervisory academy. After seeing that waist plate, Wang Qinian knew that he had made the right bet. This Gongzi was obviously not only a student of Lord Fei, but also had an even more terrifying identity. Fan Xian really didn't expect this waist plate to have such a powerful effect. He couldn't help but squint his eyes and start recalling his previous years with Fei Jie. That cripple from the supervisory academy was the one who saved his life that he saw when he was just reincarnated. It was obvious that the supervisory academy was looking at his mother's face to take such care of him. So then he had to make sure he took advantage of it before he could do anything about it. Did you understand everything I said? Fan Xian smiled as he looked at Wang Qinian. This official was a bit old, had a wife and son at home, which fit right in with Fan Xian's requirements. He didn't have the experience of ruling over his subordinates, so all of this would have to be learned in the process, so he was willing to have his first close friend be someone he knew occasionally and who wouldn't have too much ambition. Understood, Mr. Fan. Wang Qinian smiled, his fingers subconsciously pressed on his belt, where apart from a few pieces of broken silver, there were already several more silver bills. No, it should be Lord Fan. I just entered Kyoto not long ago, so I don't have any competent men, and my teacher is not in the capital. Fan Xian thought for a moment before saying, I still have a close friend, named Fujiko Kyoto, only he is currently injured, and I don't think he will be able to get well for a few months. In the future, when he is well, I will arrange for you to meet with him. Yes. Wang Qinian didn't have any extra words to say. This point was too much better than when Fan Xian first entered the inspectorate. Find a way to get some manpower. Fan Xian was trying to do this for the first time, so he felt a bit unfamiliar and had to learn step by step, like you and me. Can we transfer people from the courtyard? Wang Qinian suddenly said with some uneasiness, My lord, my subordinate has actually just left from the courtyard. Fan Xian was shocked, thinking that he could not have been so unlucky, and asked, What is the reason for this? Wang Qinian summoned up enough courage to talk about the internal investigation of the supervisory yuan, as well as the matter of the Temple of Qing, deliberately saying a few more words about concealing Fan Xian's identity in order to show his foresight and early loyalty. Fan Xian frowned and asked, My current position is that of a Tishi. Can the power of a Tishi help you in this matter? Of course it can. Wang Qinian was overjoyed, realizing that he had followed a figure destined for greatness in the future. It's just that there are some procedures that need to be followed. Your Excellency can issue a warrant for me to return to the status of the Supervisory Academy first, and then the person will return to the Academy after some days. Good, then I'll take care of these things right away. Fan Xian looked at this half-small old man and muttered in his heart about what use he could get out of finding such a person as a close friend, and asked warmly, I wonder what Lord Wang is best at. Tracking hidden trails. As soon as Wang Qinian mentioned his specialization, his entire spirit became invigorated and he spoke eloquently. After listening to half a day, Fan Xian realized that he had run into a strange person. This Wang Qinian was a lone thief in the northern part of the Qing country when he was a teenager, and liked to roam between the dozen or so small vassal states between the northern Wei and the Qing country in those years, and sold the goods stolen in country A to country B, but then sold the things stolen in country B to country C. Because he never refused to reveal the original source of the stolen goods, coupled with the innate skill at hiding his traces, he had been doing business without money for a few years in a safe manner. Because of this, I was able to do a very safe business for several years without any capital. Until later, the officials of these small vassal states hated the hasty, join hands to surround, he really can't show his means, was forced to enter the country of Qing, not expected to enter the country of Qing, but bumped into the then with the emperor planning for the northern expedition matters of the supervisory yuan president Qin Pingping, captured, and from now on, the thief for the official has been up to the present day. Fan Xian looked into his eyes and said softly, Siri Lili is being escorted back to Kyoto. Maybe someone wants to intercept her, maybe someone wants to kill her, but whichever it is, don't worry about it. You just need to keep an eye on those people and see who they end up making contact with. He paused and said with some embarrassment, because you just said that you are the best at tracking and finding traces, but your martial arts skills are poor, so I had to come up with such a stupid method. Wang Qinian smiled and replied, when I was young, the courtyard was not as big as it is now, and the two of us, Zhong Chase and I, were the two strongest tracking techniques in the courtyard, only that he has since been following the dean of the house, and I was a bit lazy and changed to a civilian position. However, the adults can rest assured that, although the half-old arm, half-old legs, keeping an eye on a few people should still be no problem. I have a lawsuit on my hands and can't leave the capital, or else I would definitely go to see your skills. Fan Xian smiled, Old Wang, other than that, you should take care of your old life first, that's the most important thing. After establishing this matter, Fan Xian returned to the Fan Mansion without stopping, frowning and letting his sister reorganize his injured shoulder, dispensing some motherwort powder himself to stop the bleeding and regenerate his muscles, which worked wonders. His injury is refused to let those doctors to move, on the one hand, do not trust each other to treat poisonous wounds of competence, on the other hand is Roro's slender, slightly cool soft fingertips, always more comfortable than those calluses in the Lumen's bare paws to be a lot of lovely. Entering the study and looking at the gorgeous hair growing on Sinan Bo, Fan Xian saluted with some difficulty and said very directly, Father, I need some manpower. Fan Jian glanced at him and couldn't help but smile slightly. Where do you want to keep an eye on? The eldest princess is Aaliyah, the chancellor's family servant's room, the brothel where the crown prince often hangs out, the polo field where the second prince likes to go. The grape arbor in the King Jing's family's house? Fan Xian shrugged. You know that I'm not very specialized in these things, so I need you to support me with some more specialized manpower, who will then make the judgment on how to find out who that person is behind the curtain. Fan Jian raised his index finger and shook it. We don't need to be professional, you're right about that, but we need to coordinate the arrangements. A group of professional people under the arrangement of an inexperienced person will still not be able to do these things well. Please instruct Father. Fan Xian spoke sincerely. Fan Jian glanced at him and lowered his head again to continue reading. Actually, those places you mentioned already have people keeping an eye on them. I'm just wondering how you know about these places when you just came to the capital not long ago. Fan Xian smiled, knowing that while his father had outwardly advised him to be patient for now, he had in fact long since begun his own covert investigations. It's easy to know things when you talk to your subordinates more. Fan Jian did not raise his head, his gaze still resting on the book, but prepare yourself mentally, the investigation in Kyoto will probably not yield any results. Fan Xian frowned. Fan Jian continued, it's still up to Sariri there. He paused and then said, the two female assassins you killed seem to be the disciples and grandchildren of the 4 goose swords of Dami City, and I've heard that the 4 goose swords haven't shown up in Dami City for a long time, so be careful. Fan Xian replied sadly, if a great master is dedicated to giving everything he has to kill someone, who can hide from him? Fan Jian nodded, but you shouldn't have the qualifications to be worthy of his hand, and relax a bit, this is just a somewhat useful piece of information. A dozen days later, Kyoto, to the north of about 500 miles outside the city of Changzhou, a line of people are in the morning cold wind to the south. This line is the supervisory yuan around the manpower, thousands of miles of pursuit. And finally in the sea Lili is about to escape out of the state of Qing before the other side to take down. It is to be escorted back to Kyoto to prepare for the trial to go. The team has been walking to the south of the long time. Look at the days to go back to Kyoto. The leader of the supervisory yuan official handed a steamed bun into the prison car, said, eat it. Si Lili's face was haggard, her long hair was hanging loose, and there was some gray dirt on her cheeks. If Fan Xian had seen her at this time, he would never have imagined that this was the Kyoto's top-ranking red herdsman who had shared her bed for a night. Si Lili chewed a few mouthfuls of hard steamed bread, suddenly raised her face, and said through clenched teeth, even if I am escorted back to Kyoto, I will not tell you anything. The official glanced at her, his gaze full of mockery. Do you think we are escorting you back to Kyoto because we want to know something from your mouth? I really don't understand if those counterparts in Northern Qi have nothing better to do than to let a dumbass like you stay in Kyoto. Lily was indeed a scout of Northern Qi, but on a daily basis, she was meeting people with the appearance of a flower girl, hearing mostly compliments or praises. How could any man coldly call himself a fool like this? And said in a trembling voice, "Of course I know that you guys don't want to know anything from my mouth, because after I speak out, the dynasty of the Kingdom of Qing will only be in turmoil for quite a while." The official sneered and said, "In fact, you had the best choice in the beginning. On the day of the assassination, you should have tied your hands, instead of fleeing far away. In this way casually you testified against which official colluded with the Northern Qi, are sufficient to achieve your Northern Qi's goal. And you fled. This shows that you regard your own life as more important than this mission." Lily lowered her head, acknowledging this fact. Her fingers pinched the hardened bun hard, leaving deep finger marks on it.